Today's episode's a very special one. It's our 51st episode, and to commemorate that, we wanted to bring in three of our most tenured teammates that work with us at Supplement Superstores. Freddy Ford, Dylan Smith, and Blake Bukaty. These three guys have worked with us over 5 years. They started working for us right as we opened our second ever location here in Kansas City. Why it's so important to us is they believed in a time where it was very difficult to see the future of what we were trying to build here in Kansas City. And we think there's a lot of great insight and a lot of great information for you guys to learn on, if you're a young person or if you're working at a company for a long period of time, how to best deal with things like burnout, how to see vision before it happens, and how to best advance within the company that you're working within. We do hope you guys listen in and get some insight from it. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, and we hope you enjoy. Today is a special episode.
Very special, Jeff. Tell us why it's special.
We have not one, not two, but three guests.
Three handsome guests.
Three handsome bearded guests that you just don't get every day. And they are three young studs that worked for Kyle and I for the last
5 years.
5+ years now. And they're our first ever 5+ year employees. And it's important that we bring them on today, guys, because it's very difficult to be a young person in America these days, I feel like, and stick with anything for 5+ years, let alone a startup brand in a city where no one knows who you are, no one's heard of your company, and you have very little to look at to base your belief off of. And these three guys right here, as much as we're going to joke and have fun today, I just want to make sure you guys all understand how fucking proud me and Kyle are of all three of you and the men that you've become. And we're so excited to have you guys on today. And it's something that we've been looking forward to since we started the podcast, is to be able to have our own dudes on here to share your experiences. And understand this, guys, these dudes all work for a company that is of me and Kyle, who also worked for someone. And in this day and age, it's very difficult to find a place where you feel like you can become extremely successful, whether it be who you are as a person or financially, in a place where you're being pushed so hard that, you can be an entrepreneur, you don't have to work for anybody, you can choose your own hours, and all this is I feel like pushed heavily on social media. And you guys took a different path, and I know that you're taking a different path than a lot of people your age, and so it's got to be difficult. And so I want you guys to share some of your experiences today. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So first and foremost, we got Freddy Ford. Say what's up, Fred.
What's going on? Happy to be here.
Freddie's our district manager of all of Kansas City. He's the guy that, one of our district managers. We now have two, but he's the district manager of our Kansas City locations. He oversees basically 8 stores throughout our market. And then we got Dylan Smith.
What's up, guys?
Dylan is the manager of our newly opened Ward Parkway store, basically almost smack dab in the middle of Kansas City. And then we got
Blake Bukaty.
How's it going?
Blake Bukaty is the manager of our Shawnee location. He's also worked at our Overland Park, our Olathe locations as well. Am I missing a store in there?
No.
We got, make sure you lean in closer to the mic whenever you're, put those seats together as best you can. Dylan has also managed our Shawnee location, and he's also managed our Lee Summit location. And like Kyle said, he's been working at our Ward Parkway location since it opened. And that's a position that he earned. And so we're super excited about these new opportunities that have come these guys' ways based on their own hard work.
Yeah, so let's get into it, man. Why do you guys even work for us? What made you want to start working for us, and what made you guys basically stay the path for such a long period of time?
When I got hired on originally, I went and applied for the job just because I had, heard that I could get my NASM certifications in personal training, nutrition. I thought that was really cool. I had done some training in the past, and I was excited about discounted supplements. I was ready to go home with a ton of protein, ton of pre-workout.
Sounds like an 18-year-old.
Yeah, not really thinking long-term, this is what I'm going to do. A funny story about Dylan is I actually met him in the store before he applied for us, and I remember he was in the store talking to Jeff about Shay and then Jeff about some pre-workout. And I think I overheard you say something about a lift. And I remember thinking, wow, that dude's pretty strong sounding from what he's saying. And then I stopped and said, what's up to you? And kind of headed out the door. And then when I found out you applied to a workforce, I was pretty pumped about it. Cause I'm seems like a good kid. Seems like he's got his head on straight. So was excited for that, man.
Yeah, for me, I actually I worked at a retirement home first. So I worked.
I remember.
Tallgrass Creek Retirement Home. I worked across the street.
You were like a server, weren't you?
I was a server
At a retirement home.
at a retirement.
Who here
home.
knew that there were servers there?
Oh yeah, no, it is bougie. So
Okay.
there's a really nice dining room. I worked there, and I was coming home from my job and needed some creatine, and I saw a supplement superstore. So I was like, okay, hell yeah, let's go get some creatine. Went across the street, met you guys. I was in high school at the time. It was spring break, and talked to Tyler Mantler, and Tyler Mantler was talking about how he was like, hey, man, we just moved to Kansas City. Company's growing. So I was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Eventually applied. And, I really remember sitting in my interview, and Kyle was like, well, how long do you want to work here? Like, what's kind of your plan? And I was like, yeah, probably like a year or two, going to college and going to go to JUCO for a couple years and probably go to KU or K-State after that.
It's funny how we think we know what we're doing at 18.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I want to be
We all thought we knew what we were doing.
I was like, I either want to be a physical therapist or be in sales. So it's completely different things. But he was like, yeah, this is more of like a career type deal. And I was like, I don't want to work in a supplement store my whole life. Eventually got hired. And when it really turned the corner as far as wanting to make it a career was when Freddy was my manager, and he was kind of painting the picture of what it was like in St. Louis and what we're going to build in Kansas City. That's really what kind of made me go all in.
That's awesome, dude.
I remember Blake just coming in and being like, "Whoa, how cheap is your C4?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, we got the goods on the C4 pricing, dude."
Yeah.
$19 C4.
$19.
Yep.
Dry scooping it.
What about you, Frank?
A little bit different path. I was coming from a different career, and
If you listen to episode 25,
We
guys,
have had Freddy on the podcast. before.
Freddie's got an incredible story as far as how he started, and so I just want to make sure, like, if you ever want to hear more about what Freddie's about to say, he's got his own episode. It's episode number 25.
yeah. So coming from a different career, I kind of had just a different perspective. I was a little bit older. These guys, I think, were both 18 coming out of high school, and I was 25, and I knew I wanted to be a part of a career that I could have influence in. And I kind of was looking up and out as far as where the company was headed and the potential where it was going. And it was right in line with all the things I loved. So I had seen the growth in St. Louis. I'd seen the potential of what it could be. And knowing that there were, essentially one had just opened 2 weeks prior, I knew it was going to work. And so whether it was going to work or not, I was sold out on like, hey, I'm going to make this work. So I dove right in and have never looked back.
Yeah, and with you two, with Dylan and Blake, knowing what you know about our company now, when you guys were 18 and we were hiring you in, think about how hard it was for us. We're basically, we just moved to Kansas City. We're trying to sell you guys on the vision of like, hey, listen, we are going to open more stores. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to grow outside of Kansas City. These are our goals. It's easy to convince. It's not easy. It's easier to convince somebody like Freddy who has already seen it in St. Louis. But for you guys, it was like a totally new thing. You were just kind of like, huh? I don't get it.
Yeah, we were just working at the store. Like
Yeah.
that's what my view was like, oh yeah, this cool shop that I'm working at.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was no big picture outside of that at the time.
And I can relate with you guys because I got hired at 19, and I was a sophomore in college. And the store had the original logo on it when I applied, and it just looked like, and it looked half as good as what our stores look like now, And so, there's something to be said for the belief and when that started to really come in for you, because that's one of our core values. We talk about believe from the beginning. And the truth is that when you're young, you just don't have enough life experience to understand what you're buying into. And so it's understandable for a young person to be reserved. And so I want to guide this podcast in a way that everybody can really get some value out of it. We're going to have some fun, memories and so forth, and we're going to talk about these and have some laughs. But I talked to several business owners today, and the number one problem that they're all having is their own staff. Being able to trust their employees to care about their company or their gym or their business as much as they do. And it's one of the most difficult things you can possibly go through as a business owner. And by nature, humans aren't typically going to care as much as what the owner cares, because they know that they're not the owner. They know that they're not getting paid as much. If somebody has a manager, it's like you're not going to usually work as hard as the manager because you know that the manager is your boss and they make more money and they have more responsibility. And so our company's different. We ask everybody to do the exact same things. You know what I'm saying? The manager essentially does the payroll and the schedule, but like everybody else is doing the exact same job, right? So for Freddy, Freddy was extremely important to our culture, guys, because Freddy was the first person to believe in the level that in which we need to move a company forward. You know, you guys understand this now, that you need someone to care as much as you care in order to be able to multiply the company out. So for you to open a new business, you got to have somebody that's going to work in there at least 80% of the hours there that's going to genuinely put in as much effort as the owner. And you guys serve that role for us now as operators of those locations that you're in. But when did you guys really truly feel like you got it? Was there a moment? Was there a transaction? Was an interaction with a customer that really, hit home? When did you all of a sudden say like, oh shit, I really have to care all the way?
For me, I feel like I had a pretty good understanding of what the company was. Like from the first moment you told me that I could own a franchise, immediately in my head I'm like, okay, I want to do that. But I don't think I fully bought in. I didn't really put all the dots together until I was 19 and I just moved out of my house. And I remember I had a bunch of money saved up. So for like the first 2 months I was living, it was great. I was eating out every single night. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh God, I don't have any money. And then I was like, well, I better figure out how I can get promoted, and you hit that situation where you're like, well, I have to figure it out or else I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. And,
you figure it out.
Yeah. You start seeing yourself progress in the company and then you're like, oh, okay, I can actually do this. And then, from there it was, just keep going.
We always know that about you too, Dylan. I want to say, like, I think the older you get, the more you might understand what I was trying to tell you when you were 18. It's like, dude, you already know that you could be good at this. It's just a matter of when you want to decide. We're just waiting for you to show us that you're ready for that responsibility.
You basically have to surrender to the system that you're in. And when you grow up, for anybody who's listening to this that doesn't know Dylan is very naturally gifted in a lot of things. I'd say you're gifted at, strength sports, you're gifted at, speaking to people, and you have a lot of natural talents. And that actually is hard for a lot of people to surrender themselves to a system because they're always used to relying on themselves, and they want it to be their thing. Right. But to be successful, and that's not here, that's not just here. It's, if you want to be successful anywhere and add value to any company, you have to be willing to surrender to the system that you are in, or else, if you're always hedging your bets and you're always thinking, but then you're never going to find out. There's going to be somebody out there. There's somebody in every company that's not butting everything. There's somebody in every company that's not hedging their bets, and they're just going to beat you if you are hedging your bets. And it was somewhere around, probably the second year that you worked for us or third year that you worked for us that you fully surrendered, and then you became one of our best managers. It was very easy to see, like, oh, when Dylan turns it on and he kind of points all his natural talents towards something, then it's like he's unstoppable. And
that's I think the biggest thing that kind of helped me realize that was it was like October 2019, and Freddy had just taken over as my manager. And I remember it was the day after Halloween, the entire staff went out and partied, and no one showed up for their shifts the next day. And I had like my first ever hard conversation with Freddy. And at some point during that, he said some version of, hey, you just need to be stupider. You know what I mean? It was quit trying to do your own thing, quit trying to make things easier, quit trying to find your own route of doing this. Just be stupider, follow the game plan. And it was honestly like the first time I'd been like, oh, God, Freddy's really serious about this. And it made me realize like I just need to be stupider. Follow exactly what
until you really surrender, like Kyle's saying, and that's the same concept, right? Is we want you to stop thinking so hard about putting it through your own filter and thinking, I need to do it this way or that way. Everything that you're thinking of doing, we already tried and already failed. We already know, we've done this for 20 years straight, so it's like we've already done
25.
All these, yeah, now it's 25, but at the time. And so moving forward, it's like you're in a position where, and everybody that's listening to this, being a successor starts. Everybody has an entrepreneurial mindset, wants to be special, wants to show that they know what they're doing, wants to show that they have like the special sauce, if you will. And it's like you can't do that until you actually prove that you know how to follow your system all the way. Until you can show that you can be a good follower, it's very difficult to be a good leader within a company. And so the sentiment that I want people to get out of this, based on what Kyle was saying to Dylan, on what he was struggling with as far as trying to do things basically what we would call going cowboy or going rogue, like you're doing things on your own without following the system, is if you wanted to do things on your own, then you should just go do things on your own. And that's like the easiest way to put it, I think, for young people is like, yeah, man, if you want to do it your way, that's cool. Just like go open your own supplement store and go do your own thing. Like, that's fine. Just can't do it here because we have to do things our way here. You know what I mean? And it's not to be selfish or to talk down to somebody. It's simply that, hey, we've already made all of these mistakes. Why are we making them again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot to be said there. And it's unfortunate, like it's difficult to find good leadership and management, I think, in a lot of other companies, especially for young people. I think Gen Z gets a lot of bad rep based on having some poor leadership. I think Gen Z works extremely hard if you have people who actually give them a good vision and give them a good, give them good leadership and lead by example.
What are you guys' opinions on that? Obviously, you guys have friends that are younger than us, and you guys have grown up in the first generation that basically started getting labeled as that. What are your guys' impression of that?
Kids,
Freddy's
you guys are all kids that had iPhones at like
Freddy's
6
a
or
little
7,
bit
right?
older, but you might be on the tail end of that.
No, I'm. I answered that question actually in an interview with somebody potentially to hire yesterday, and they asked me a similar question. And the episode number 50 was Sal. He answered it pretty well, and he just said, "Hey, like, people want to work hard. They just are pretty selective anymore of who they want to work hard for."
Right.
And I in the interview I was like, man, if you open your phone right now, you can look at some edit that Patrick Mahomes just posted that is just awesome, video, audio, and like a 13-year-old kid can make that.
It's amazing, yeah.
And it's amazing. Like people want to be creative, they want to work hard, but man, when you have those people in the book All In, they say like people don't leave. You've said it a number of times, Jeff. People don't leave jobs; they leave their bosses. They don't quit on the job; they quit on their bosses. And I think that's so true, and I think that's going to be true generationally. It's not just young kids. I mean, if anything, people are getting a little bit smarter, and maybe they think they're too smart for their own good. But it's who you work with and how well you work with them. Do they trust you? Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like we're different genetically. It's not like the people that are born right now are any different on a human level than they were 20 years ago. I think a big thing is just, and I know it sounds so cliche, but it's so prone this generation to instant gratification and distractibility that it's hard to keep people focused. Mm-hmm. It's genuinely hard to keep people focused on one specific goal and one specific goal for a continued amount of time. And I think that something that this company does really, really well is they're very transparent on what the expectations are. And we're very transparent on what needs to happen in order to get there. And if you want to do it, it's laid out to do it. And if you don't want to do it, then don't follow that. I think it's very clear. But at the same time, I know that sounds pretty cutthroat. All of our leadership genuinely cares. All of our leadership genuinely cares about the careers of these young people. And that sounds, kind of corny, but like it matters. That's something that genuinely matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think every company has a bit of fluff to it, right? Like there's some things that sound like it's all like, sunshine and rainbows. And again, I had these same conversations with other business owners where they're having these struggles. And I'm like, I know what I'm saying sounds like super, kind of out there, like, like it sounds like it's like, I don't know, like magical unicorn
It's
shit.
good in theory.
Yeah, like that sounds good, Jeff, but how do you actually follow through with that? Yeah. It's like, hey, we live by these core values. These core values are how we hire and fire people. When we have struggles with employees, it's not a matter of it being personal. I don't come down on Dylan and say, hey, man, I think you were wrong here. I say like, hey, man, in this company, we value accepting responsibility. You were late yesterday. What happened there? And I look for him to give me an answer that lets me know what really happened there. And we don't have any time for BS and excuses here. And that's just because that's what's keeping you from being what you tell me that you want to do in life, right? So we always direct everything back to what the goals are of the employee. Hey, you told me you wanted to be a millionaire. Hey, you told me you wanted to open your own market. Hey, you told me you wanted to open your own store. How are you going to do that if you can't get to work on time, dude? And so it's tough love, right? It sounds like it, but dude, it's like, Kyle does a really great job of articulating this, and I'll let you do it better than me. But it's, what's the nicest thing you can do for people, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is with most people, they feel like doing the nice thing is having the easy conversation with somebody, right? And, for you guys, this is probably the first, company that you've ever worked for that somebody had to come out and basically tell you the truth to your face. But the big thing about the truth is when you hear it, it hurts. You know, if you are doing something that, you know, if you're working a job and you're putting in a lot of hours, you're putting in, you know, 50, 60 hours a week, and you're busting your ass for that job, and then you have somebody above you that comes in and tells you the truth about something, and your ego's attached to how you're doing that job, and that truth, it's true, but you don't want to hear it. You know, it kind of is like a little dagger in your heart. Well, a lot of people look at that and they say, hey, that guy's mean. You know, that manager's mean. I don't like the way that manager is, you know, coming at me. But you know, what we've learned over time is that if the nicest thing you can do for somebody is tell them the truth in that situation, because if you do not tell them the truth in that situation, they're not going to change that habit, and they're going to keep kicking the can down the road, and eventually it's going to get to a point where you have to be replaced because you have all these bad habits that we never corrected a long time ago. And you guys now do that with your employees, right? So, Freddy, you do it with the managers. You two do it with your employees that you have now. And, you know, it's not about being a dick, right? You don't want to come at them in the wrong way.
It's never personal.
It's never personal, but, you know, you have to let people know right away when something that they're doing is holding them back from their ultimate goals. And that's why it's also important that you are very much in tune with what your employees are trying to achieve, you know?
Yeah, well, and I think that like it goes back. You guys were talking about the younger generation. Like, what is the difference? I would agree with Blake. Like, I don't think there's any difference. I think people, you know, younger people today can be just as successful. They can have, you know, the exact same you know, success that people 20 years ago did. The issue is like when you're trying to get someone to work harder for you. Back in the day, you weren't fighting 98 different people on Instagram that are telling them they can be successful drop shipping, doing it easy. You know, it shouldn't have to be hard, that type of thing.
Yeah, man, just read the 4-hour work week and
right.
Dude, like online betting or freaking, you know,
Being a
Robinhood,
being a
crypto
guy.
like, dude, all of that stuff is like, it's way more accessible now. Now it's all on your phone. So it's like, you know, I can get lucky on my phone, you know, and a lot of people, a lot of younger people that haven't had experience losing a bunch of money doing something like that, it's, you know, a lot of times they just have to go through it the hard way.
Yeah, they
So
gotta
you're
touch the
telling me
stove.
that I should lose a lot of money sports betting then?
Yeah,
You know what? Hey,
have you done it yet?
I don't want to brag, but, you know, that Chiefs Super Bowl, I made some cash.
Yeah.
Took the over, you know, also took the Chiefs to cover, ended up making a little bit of money.
Why are you looking at me, Kyle?
Did you make money?
You couldn't bet. You're in Arizona unless you placed them.
It's
Arizona,
actually it's legal.
sports betting.
It's illegal.
I know Jeff made some money.
It's right next to Nevada.
I won the money line, but no. Anywho, like this is an important one for me because we also need to be transparent and authentic here. There's been times where all of you guys have thought about quitting. What I want to talk about is like what made you stay. Dylan and Blake both have sat with you both when you were like, "Yep, putting in my 2 weeks. This is what I'm doing."
Yep.
And you know, you were a much wiser 20-year-old or 21-year-old at this time.
Yeah, I think, okay, so like looking back at it, and I think that specific situation is far enough where I can really look at it and kind of know what was going on better now than I even did at the time. So I think it's a combination of a couple
What was going on
things.
in your life, or what was going on within our company, or
Both.
Okay.
Both. So here's something that I could have done better. Is this is where distractibility comes into play. And I'm pretty, if you know me, I'm pretty prone to getting distracted. I'm pretty prone to that. So
my name's Dory.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So so when I did, this was a few months into COVID, and I was working with Bob.
The day after I got promoted to run Shawnee.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. So like that wasn't a good look. It was not about
chain
that.
reaction.
No. It was not about that.
Yeah.
Not good optics.
You were day trading on Robinhood.
right.
It's 2020.
Like I'm out.
You just bought some Bitcoin.
Screw this Dylan guy. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. No. Yeah. So I think a couple things come into play. So what I think the main thing is a few months prior, I was working with Trevor Stevens and Bob Zielinski.
Some of our best guys for our listeners here.
Oh yeah. All managers now. So that was our staff. Me, Trevor, Bob at Olathe. And we were working very, very hard. We really were. Looking back on it, obviously we could have done things a little bit better, a little bit more efficient. But looking back on that time period, I'm very proud about how hard we worked.
You guys were running thin. For our listeners, we got to understand that it usually takes 4 or 5 employees to function a store.
So
you guys are doing it with 3.
here was our schedule. So every third week, one of us got Sunday off. So I did get Super Bowl 54 Sunday off. Just fell in line. That was awesome. But anyway, we were working really, really hard. We had a bunch of momentum build up. And we were all really hot at the time. And then COVID happened. And after COVID happened, everything kind of slowed down. And that spark kind of diminished a little bit. Got distracted a little bit and started looking at a couple other paths. Also at the time too, this is the second part of it, which I think our company is so good at now that we may not have been as good at back then, is being completely transparent on all the options that were at play. So back then, I only wanted to run a franchise. I wanted to own my own franchise. And then it got to a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to move to a different city and do all that. I think I just kind of want to, like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. So I'm 21. I don't want to waste time like working toward that.
Who influenced you on that the most? Because that's actually a big deal that you made that decision.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just family in general. Like I was like, I don't know if I want to move away to a different city without family there. So
me and Jeff both don't live by our families.
I know. I know. So
just dropped like a bad habit, dude.
Right.
Sure.
But
see you, anyway, Mom and Dad.
Right. But so I wasn't completely clear. So things were pretty foggy. So I was like, okay, well, I want to be all in on whatever I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, what would I be pretty good at? And I was like, I think I'd be good at real estate. Same with everyone thinks that they're going to be really good at real estate.
I laugh at like, what's good at real estate?
I don't know. I was like, I'm good with people. And
yeah, sure.
You know what real estate is, and most people don't know this before they get into it, is it is a sales job. It is legitimately as much networking as you possibly can do to try and get that going. A lot of people
accessible as possible.
People get into real estate and they're like, just don't have many people coming to me. Like, well, they're not going to. You're going to have to sell them on why they should come to you
and sell them on yourself
and create relationships.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at that. So I'm gonna start doing that. And anyway, that's when Jeff, Kyle, and Freddy sat down with me, and we had a long conversation about what we're going to do internally in Kansas City as well, and decided to just go back all into this. And I was very focused at that point.
Yeah, for you, it took you like 4 minutes, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm not quitting. You're right."
Yeah, no, I mean, like it was pretty black and white at that point.
I'm sorry, it was just we've had a lot of these conversations in our lives with people that are like, I'm just getting burnt out. I need to do this, I need to do that, and it's like you're like, yeah, I don't know why I thought I was going to do that.
Yeah, after I was like,
the
that was
thing
kind of
is
dumb.
too is in our company, there's times where you have somebody come to you and they have that conversation with you, and because we are very much in tune with wanting to make the right decisions for people long term, there's a lot of people that were like, hey,
you should go do that.
Yeah, you should go do that. I think you'd be good at that. And I think
100%.
That, you know what I'm saying?
I've had the same conversation with employees of myself, and that's 100% true. One thing I will say, though, this is actually a point that I was going to originally make, is going back to how hard we were working over at Olathe. And then we really were able to work, or at least I thought I wasn't able to work as hard during COVID, and I stopped grinding as much. Really, that grind makes you happy. It makes you mentally healthier. If you're going all into something,
fulfillment, man,
you don't get burnt out. No. You don't get burnt out when you're going all into something. That's a realization that it sounds really motivational. It sounds like something that you'd hear on a podcast. Just to kind of motivate you, but it's the truth. It really is the truth.
Dude, I think that's that's a great point, man. I mean, like when you are all in on something, you obviously don't have the space to have the doubt.
Yeah.
Why would you doubt something that you're putting all of your effort into and you're seeing a tangible result from those efforts?
How do you guys deal with burnout?
And let's describe for our listeners what burnout means here, guys. Let me break this down.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody here, I'm sure, has experienced burnout in some aspect.
Burnout is
job.
not at all, special to our job or to a retail job or to any job. It's
doing the same thing monotonously over and over and over again.
Yep.
I learned that lesson so thankfully. I learned that lesson really early when I had nothing to do with Supplement Superstores. When I was playing baseball professionally as my career, is the job that when you're 11, you're like, this is what I want to do. And I'm in the middle of my second full season. It's a 160-game season. You're 100 days in, and you're not playing well, or this isn't going right. You got to get on another bus to go on another road trip for another week. And And I remember waking up and being in bed and being like, man, there isn't a fiber in me that wants to go to the field today. Like, I don't want to do this. I'm just kind of running thin. I'm just sick and tired of being like sick and tired, like everybody kind of has that feeling. And then at some point in there, the awareness hit me. I was like, oh no, it wasn't like oh no. It was like, oh wow. Like if I feel that today at 19 or 20 years old, playing in quotations, a dream job of playing sport professionally with a shot to make the major leagues. If I'm feeling that today, that's going to come back, and people feel that forever. And that's a normal thing to feel. And I just realized right then and kind of just accepted very quickly, like, that's going to come and go. It's going to be like waves, And Blake, to your point, right? Like if you really believe deeply in something and you're doing the right thing, it's just the highs you don't get too high and the lows you don't let get too low. And you really fight to be consistent through it. And I've gotten to a point, I think, in my life now that even when I got hired here to start, I didn't fully grasp. And that's when you get run down. A lot of times people get the poor me's. They get tired. They get thinking about themselves. And they stand in the center of their universe. And when you're at the center of the universe for your life, the only person you're thinking about is you. And that eliminates your ability to step back and have gratitude for the things that you do have. And I'm telling you, that fog is foggy. It's thick. And it leads people to make decisions that maybe good decisions, probably not, because they're typically leaning towards being emotional. And for me, man, when I step back,
you know what else happens in that time frame too is you start grabbing and dragging other people into your poor me's. So
you're looking for validation from somebody somewhere to tell you what you're selling yourself is true.
Yep.
And it's such
and somebody else is taking the exact same opportunity that you have, and they're killing it.
They're crushing.
That's what's so difficult for me to understand sometimes when people are going through that. It's like everything that you're saying that you're having an issue with right now, as far as how you're feeling and all that, is all valid. And like we don't want to make anybody feel like, hey, burnout is true. I mean, it's real, man.
Yep.
But gratitude was the first thing that was going to come to my mind, is how do you cure that, right? Mm-hmm. But also it's just understanding, like, wait a second, who is using the exact same tools that I have given to me, and who is killing it with it? And then who is not, who doesn't have this opportunity that wishes they did? Yeah. And I'm over here spoiling it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So when you're in that spot, though, you don't see that. There's always like, oh, there's some reason why that person's killing it. There's some reason that is completely out of their control and out of your control.
Mm-hmm. That's that fault
that you justify to yourself.
You just can't see
and
through.
You don't even know it. Mm-hmm. You don't even realize it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's like for our business, for sake, you'd be like, oh, that person's got a better store than mine. It's in a better location. Or, yeah, man, they have that trainer that everybody loves or something,
I also think the overall, notion that it permeates throughout our society that you have to be happy all the time is dangerous. It's like the things that when I focus on, like, am I happy the most, is when, I'm the most unhappy,
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about other people, kind of like what you were saying, when I'm not the center of my universe, when I'm thinking about my family, when I'm thinking about my employees, when I'm thinking about the, culture that we have as far as the Kansas City fitness community, that's when I'm the absolute most happy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not thinking about myself, and it's really, when you're in the middle of burnout, I think you hit on a really good point that you are totally just engulfed in your own self, in your own,
And sometimes, you know what, maybe you need that. You got to look in the mirror and just be introspective for a little bit and think about your thoughts. And then there's times to step out of it and be like, hey, this isn't all just about me. And if it is, you're going to feel pretty lonely.
It's important to call upon logic in those moments as well, because it's really easy to be emotional and go down the emotional roller coaster versus like if you're just logical.
Well, to Blake's point, though, when you're feeling that emotional, it's very difficult to come to that. You know what I mean?
Here's what it is: it's a bad breakup you've watched your friend go through, and you're like, she or he is crazy, and they're like, I don't know. It's the same fault.
Yeah.
And years later, they look back and they're like, they were crazy, and we're like, we know, dude. We were
like,
telling you,
trying to tell you this whole time.
That's burnout, and you get in the middle of that cloud, and it's like, oh boy. Sometimes you just got to touch the stove to find out it's hot, and it's harder you try. Dylan, I know burnout is something that when you turn it on because you are skilled at things, you can turn it on, dude. And I know you've found in the past, you've pushed those limits and found almost an unsustainable pace, and kind of reached the end of your rope at times. That I'm thankful that you went through. What are you taking away from your experiences?
I mean, for me, it's kind of tough because when I was going through the whole situation of thinking I wanted to quit, I fully convinced myself at that time that I couldn't feel burnout. Because you guys know I'd been away from the company for a bit and I'd come back. And, you know, I came back as an hourly employee and I was like, I'm going to do absolutely anything I can to get into this management position. I would go to a different gym every single day. We just opened the Lee Summit store and I did that. I know for 143 days straight, I went and calculated out one time. I didn't take a single day off. I remember I went out sampling on Easter, mostly just to make a point. I was like, I will do anything. You know what I mean? And kind of tried to keep that up and keep that up and keep that up. And I'd convinced myself, like, my boats are burned. Like, there's nothing, you know, there is no such thing as burnout. That when I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I want to do something else. Like, I think I have a ton of skills. I never questioned if this business was going to work. Like, I still fully believed in the opportunities, but I hit this point where I was like, you know what? I should go do something to myself, like by myself. I'm skilled. You know, I've got the knowledge to do this. I've been in fitness now for, you know, I've been working out for 15 years. I was a trainer for 3 years before I ever started working here. I was like, I have what it takes to go do this on my own. And I know I can. And, you know, I even got as far as, Jeff had given me the kind of final, like, hey, take 2 days, really consider this, you know, and call me once you have that decision.
Dylan was definitely a guy that we had a lot of conversations with. It was, you know, back to what I was saying as far as like some people you just kind of say, yeah, I wish you luck, man. And if there's anything I can do, I can help with you. But like Dylan was like a guy that we were like, man.
Yeah, Dylan bets on himself, and he has from the very beginning. And so it was like, this is one of those situations where from our past experiences with other employees, it's like, all right, Dylan's going to need to go figure this out for himself.
Yeah. Well, and part of it for me is I learned I have to let myself feel that, because since I told myself I was invincible, I can't feel burnout. When I started getting these feelings of like, oh, I should be doing something else, my gut was like, hey, you should actually be doing something else. Like, you're going to work as hard as you can for as long as you need to at this, and maybe this just isn't meant for you. And, you know, like I said, I got to the point I told Jeff, I gave him the final call. I remember I was in traffic court that day, and I left court, and I called Jeff, and I was like, hey, man, thought it all over. I'm 100% done. And Jeff had even gone as far as to, you know, hook me up with a phone call with Justin Williams, who's the best, you know, or one of the best online trainers, most successful ones.
That was the route that Dylan was going to go into, at least to begin.
Right.
And so I wanted him to talk to somebody who has been able to do it at a high level.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, after talking to him, I was like, yeah, this is totally for me, you know, and it's kind of cool. Like, I really appreciate the fact that when I called Justin, it was totally, he wasn't like, there was no hidden agenda. He wasn't trying to convince me of anything, you know, because part of me was like, oh, Jeff's probably going to tell him to, you know, tell me, oh, it's the worst thing ever. Don't do this.
Tell Dylan to stay.
Yeah. But I hit this point. It was actually supposed to be my last day working. It was my final day. And I hit this point, and it was kind of weird. I was at the Lee Summit store, and I actually just stepped out back for a minute because I had this weird gut feeling that something wasn't right. And it was almost like a hit to my ego. But I legitimately just had the thought to myself, I was like, Dylan, you have quit every single thing that you have ever done right when it starts to get really tough. You know what I mean? Like, whether that be school, you know, I gave up on physics in college as soon as that started to get really tough. You know, the first couple of years, like, oh, I'm crushing this, is easy. And then it's like, now we're throwing advanced calculus at you and stuff. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me. You know, and I realized that I wasn't quitting because I didn't like it. I was quitting because it got hard, you know, and I kind of told myself, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not going to do this to myself again, because I'm going to look back in 5 years and probably be quitting whatever next thing I started, you know, if I don't ever develop this ability just to feel what I'm feeling now and continue on. And there was something Kyle had talked about at a manager meeting, was like leaning into burnout, you know, and I kind of recognized, hey, that is what I'm feeling. It's okay to feel this, you know, because I think I thought that it was, like, I felt guilty for even feeling like I
see all these. Well, and this is important for if we have any of our, you know, employees and anybody on our team that listens to this or listens to it in the future, is when you have that feeling of like, man, I'm feeling super burnout. We do have a phenomenal team, and I think we have a phenomenal culture, and it's very common for our teammates, you know, to think in their head, man, I feel like I'm letting these other guys down because of how burnt out I'm feeling, you know. And I'm feeling like I'm not doing as good a job as these other guys. And I need to like do them a favor by leaving, you know? And it's like, oh, well, man, you're human. Everybody on this team has felt what you felt. You know what I'm saying? And like, you don't get that at the time when you're feeling it, but there's a lot of pressure on yourself that you put on yourself. Like, I need to perform better because I don't want let these other guys down.
Well, and I think that's definitely part of it. You know, like, oh, if I'm not fully sold on this, you know, I had Nicola was my assistant manager at the time. I'm like, Nicola's sold. He wants to do this for his life. And I'm like, if I'm not 100% bought in, how can I do this? And I
feel guilty. Yeah.
Yeah. And it even goes back to what we're talking about, like what's harder for the younger generation. is I'd never had anyone tell me like, hey, sometimes you're just going to like legitimately feel like you don't like going to work. You're going to feel like you don't want to continue doing this. That's okay. Like that's when you need to like lean in and work even harder.
That is the,
do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
That's the price tag for success at anything is you're not going to talk to anybody who is truly successful at something and not be like, yeah, there was times where I just literally wanted to pull my hair out when I was working on that.
You have to accept that. You just have to accept that at some point. It's kind of like too, like even with working out, there's going to be days where you don't feel like working out, but you still know it's going to be the best thing for you, and you feel really good after.
There's if you lean into the workout, you leave feeling great. If you lean into it,
even better than normal workouts.
Right.
One of the most valuable things that ever happened in my life is I was able to go on a trip to Haiti, and in that trip to Haiti, there's a guy that organized his name's Kyle McClellan, really good guy. And I remember we were talking before we left for Haiti. He was saying something to me about like, what are you working on right now? And I was like, oh man, like my life has just been like out of control. I've been working like 60 hours a week and yada, yada, yada. We just have a lot going on and I'm, it's just running me into the ground. And he just looked at me and he was like, yeah. He's like, your life's tough. And I was like, and I instantly got where he was going with that. He's like, you're about to understand what tough life is because you are fucking lucky. You're sitting in an airport in America about to fly.
You're in Miami about to
fly in an airplane.
Yeah. And then, less than 12 hours later, I was in Haiti and I started to realize like, ooh, yeah, I got some things I can be thankful for, getting to help people with diet and exercise and getting to, interact with people in the community and, being able to have employees that enjoy coming to work every day. It's like, man, what a blessing to have the lifestyle that we all have. And honestly, I was really in that moment, I was kicking myself because at that point I was an owner of Supplement Superstores. I was in Kansas City. We had started seeing a little bit of success, but it made me realize how often I was in you guys' shoes and also below, like just an hourly employee's shoes where I was wishing days away. You know what I'm saying? It's really easy to, when you're in a job and you're committed to that job, but you kind of wish days away to where you're like, oh man, I can't wait till, I'm a manager. I can't wait till I'm a this or that. And, going back to what Freddy said about gratitude, it's instead of just being appreciative of the people you're talking to on a regular basis and making sure you're not going into autopilot, for me, that was a huge, huge turning point in my life as far as gratitude goes. And it made me really step back and think about life differently and specifically our job differently, So, I mean,
I went on that same trip.
Freddie went on that trip.
Yeah, a couple years, I think, before Kyle. And that trip changed, dude. It changed my life for sure. It didn't like give me some neon sign of what I needed to be doing, but I knew it needed to be in service because you go down there and you see that and you just serve down there and you're like, oh man, like this has a whole nother, there's just levels to this whole thing, and man, I came back home and I was like, listen, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but it's going to be surrounded and involved in service because it's so needed, that keeps you humble, keeps your perspective.
I want to, I'd like to keep this conversation going in the sense of what it's like to just be a young person right now as far as where to go, how to do this. Like, how do I think we all are in high school, middle school, et cetera, thinking I'm going to do this when I grow up, right? And no one's thinking I'm not going to be successful. Everybody thinks they're going to be a millionaire. There was a stat that I loved. It was like,
you also don't have to be a millionaire to be successful.
No. Yeah, that's not my point. Yeah, but like there was this fun stat that was like 83% of high schoolers think they're going to become a millionaire, and it was like, whoa, how many actually become? Less than 1%. So, and obviously, like that goalpost changes every time inflation happens, but millionaire is still a lot of money. And so the bottom line is, where does this happen, and when does this like perspective shift? When does it change? When do people start to like kind of accept their circumstances versus actually do anything about them? And what's funny about this is the same people that think 83% of them are thinking that they're going to become a millionaire. I don't know about you guys, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but when I was in high school, the person that had the best job was the job where you had to do the least amount of work and got paid the most. And everybody bragged about their job if it was like, oh, dude, I get paid $16 an hour and all I got to do is sit at this desk. You know what I'm saying? What jobs did you guys have from friends that were like I was like the first person in my group of friends that like had a job where I like really cared about doing a good job at it. Does that make sense? What were you guys doing in high school? Was this your first job, Blake?
No, I
Oh,
mean
he
this
was
was
the
Oh, that's right.
no,
Yeah,
no,
the
no,
server. Yeah.
Golden Corral was my first job.
Yeah. You and I have that in common.
Yeah.
Golden Corral servers, you make good money.
Waterway, I got fired from there because no call, no show. I forgot about my shift
Classic 16
multiple times.
Yeah.
And got fired from there. But then retirement home, then S2. But I mean, like, I don't even know if I was really thinking about that, to be honest. Like, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was thinking about, I mean, really it's just myself and working out and.
Well, that's everybody that's your age.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not uncommon. You know, I wouldn't feel guilty about that. I think
But
it's most
I
people.
just figured, I was like, you know, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a business degree. I'm pretty good at talking to people. I'll do some sales job, hopefully make 6 figures, have a lake house life.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
Still probably what you want though.
For sure. But like at the time, here's what I really didn't understand is that purposeful work is important. Like liking and enjoying what you do and feeling good about what you do every day when you drive home is important. That is so important. That's like when we're talking about if you're not working as hard as you possibly can, you're not going to be happy because it's not going to be purposeful. I can go a full shift at S2, go 80%, go through the motions and not really help people out. Like be nice to them, kind of clerk them out, not really help them out. Like you can do that and you can maybe not get in trouble or maybe fly under the radar for a little bit.
Fly under the radar
for a little bit. Eventually you're going to get exposed. But if you do that, you are not going to be happy.
Yeah,
You're not.
No fulfillment.
No. So even if it is a job to where like, let's say you're working at a shelter. If you're working at a shelter and not putting your heart into it 100%, you're still not going to be happy. Even as purposeful as that is, it's not going to feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not dwelling on the like you can't have gratitude for something.
No,
That
you
you're
can
not
do the
that-
same thing if you're
if you're not
working
trying,
construction
you
and
don't
pouring.
value it. You know?
Yes, you can be a construction worker pouring concrete, but if you're doing so 100% with the right intent, it's purposeful work.
You're building things.
Is it not the absolute best when you guys go places and you find somebody who just genuinely enjoys being at work?
Oh yeah,
We talk about this all the time, dude. If you go somewhere, it doesn't matter where it is, if the person helping you seems that they're genuinely interested in helping you, you know, when they like swivel that iPad around and make you want to tip, and you're like, well, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions.
right.
And you're like, you know what those questions are. But I'm like, dude, I will tip 100% if somebody like genuinely like looked me in the eye and they wanted to help me. I'm like, I'm so passionate about it. Like, dude, we need more people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Good Chipotle guy in my phone. He works Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at the Chipotle on college.
You don't even know his name. He's just good Chipotle guy.
He's fantastic. I don't know his name.
Why you gotta disrespect him? He's just a good Chipotle guy.
Hey, bro,
He was.
He's
I
got a
mean, maybe
name.
not just good.
how have
He's
you not tried
fantastic.
to recruit good Chipotle guy?
I mean, like, I don't know. Like, he's entertaining.
Is it Chipotle? Did you say Chipotle?
That's what I mean. He's 35. He's a dad. That's what you say when you're a dad.
Oh, really? So he's 35.
I'm Jeff
and he's a dad.
Wasserman, and I am the
pretty old.
gatekeeper of the way that you say words.
Yeah.
It's Chipotle.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, someone's got to correct you on these things.
Jeff's
What
the-
do you do? Do you spend all your extra time on the internet correcting people's grammar too?
No, just specifically read Webster's Dictionary in my free time. So I'm ready.
What is it
Stay
that
ready.
bugs Jeff the most? Is when where are you at? Not where are you?
Oh, ending a sentence with a prepositional phrase?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
How much has your life improved when you change somebody's? When you correct somebody on that, does it really improve your life?
We just got through purpose, Kyle.
Purposeful
My
work.
goal,
you got to make sure that you're.
my goal is to get you to speak in an articulate manner, as often as
Neanderthal.
possible.
Yeah.
I actually, gave you some props on your articulation earlier in this podcast.
Did you?
How quickly you forget.
Well,
Jeff, tell us about the Super Bowl. How was
yeah.
that?
Let's talk about it. Is it.
Well, as you guys know, the Chiefs did bring home a win.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Did you bring some confetti? You got confetti in the drawers?
I got confetti for you. I also was able to procure some Super Bowl 57 whiskey glasses from a suite as everybody was leaving. I went up to like the suite level, and there was like one of the suite workers just like tearing everything down, and I saw that they had like tons of these like whiskey glasses, and I was like, oh my god, like these were for sure to give away. You know what I mean? Like everybody that got them could just take them home, but these people had too much money and didn't really care, right? I'm like, I would like those glasses, please. And so the lady gives them all to us. We gave her a 20. She's like, oh, you don't have to. I'm like, dude, you just gave us like 10 Super Bowl 57 whiskey glasses. And so anyways, gave her a 20. That was awesome. Saw like, 15 celebrities in the time that you're there. It's crazy. Like I don't like go up to anybody. I don't care about that. But I'm like, damn, and they're just like out in the open because there's too many celebrities that they can't all have suites. Mm-hmm. Right. So like, Theo Vaughn and Caleb Presley were just literally sitting in the top row of my section, and they had like their own little private area. So
what a flex.
For real. That was funny. There was also like, there was A-Rod. I saw Gordon Ramsay. There was Joel Embiid. He's a huge Philly fan, right? He's plays for the 76ers. Eric Stone Street and Paul Rudd, of course. Yeah. They were all outside of this.
The real question was,
what's that?
Where was Glenny Balls?
Didn't see him. No Glenny Balls.
No Glenny Balls.
He was up in that suite and eating some ice cream.
Yeah. Dude, I saw someone try to take a picture with Theo Vaughn. He's like, I'm done taking pictures.
Drake was there.
He's like, just get away. Yeah, Drake won some money that day.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if he won all of his bets, but he
had like 100 bets.
He lost all of his parlays, but he won money line. So I think he made up for all.
He won. Yeah, he bet $700,000 or something like that on just the Chiefs to win there. So basically how much I won.
So I was watching the Chiefs in general. Like I'm not someone that I want to be around people, especially like during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, especially people that don't value football as much as you do.
100%.
So imagine going with your girlfriend.
I mean, she gets it. Like
what happened there?
Skylar.
She doesn't get it. Stop, Blake. Stop.
No, she understands.
Stop. No.
Reggie, I love you. We'll watch big games together.
No.
Whoa.
No,
wow. God,
she does, and she also understands how I am. So she's just like, I'm just going to go in the other room and let you be.
It's valuable.
So
that's absolutely valuable. And honestly, Hannah's great to watch games with. But I'm saying that like when you want to have like a constructive football talk with your buddies about like what just happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoulder tapping strangers, like, dude. So at the end, I was like, all right, babe. So you see that right there? You see, like, what's going to happen here is right after Mahomes does the 26-yard run on one leg and gets tackled from behind. Oh, wow. It's only 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in this game. If we get one more first down, they have 2 timeouts left. There's a 2-minute warning. We get one more first down, this game is over. And so we break that all down, right? We all know this as football fans. Mm-hmm. Of course, the lady next to you does not. No. But you're explaining it to her, right? And I'm like, all right, so we need a first down on this 3rd and 8 right here. And then that holding call happens, and I was like, automatic first down. We just won the game, babe. In the most anticlimactic fashion. We just won the game. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, so understand this. Like, if you are a Philadelphia fan, you are livid right now. And like, this is going to be talked about for a very long time. This is going to be like the first thing that everybody talks about.
It
was definitely a hold.
I will say
but
this.
I was just laughing at, like, I had to explain to her, like, this is a very major thing that just happened, and they're not talking about it, and we don't hear any of it because we're not at home watching on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a big deal. I pull up my phone. The first Instagram photo that pops up is of referee and Patrick Mahomes doing a jersey swap.
Yeah. I mean, like... Well, we're just not going to call any penalties the last 2 minutes.
Well, here's the stat that you're not going to like is that was actually the first and only holding penalty that was called the entire game.
And they missed one on Juju on a 3rd down.
For sure. But what
you'd rather basically have that one, though.
Basically what that stat means is that they were letting it go all game. Mm-hmm. And that
they were telling him you're allowed to do this.
Think of it like, an ump in baseball where an ump will call, a strike that's, technically out of the strike zone, but he's been calling out all night. And it's like everybody knows that's what it is. And so that's the only thing that sucks. I personally, when I was watching that game, for me, big Chiefs fan, and I was fucking we were pumped. But you kind of like the way that game ended, you were just like, dude, that's how it's going to end? Like, oh my God.
We're in the middle of an all-timer.
Yeah, it's an all-time game. And it's like, I kind of wish Jalen Hurts would have got the ball back and we'd have stopped him.
Right.
Right.
And they had no timeouts.
Yeah.
And they can't throw the ball downfield if we're actually guarding it the whole time, right? Like, we'll give them the running up the middle if we can actually, cover guys. We're getting too much detail in this game. But
yeah, we got off track. But that was a good game.
It was a good game, and afterwards was a lot of fun.
You guys watched the mic'd up?
What's that?
Have you guys seen the mic'd up yet?
They did not release it yet, did they?
Yeah.
Little sliver
NFL films it, I'm pretty sure on YouTube.
I mean, like I looked literally last night.
Oh,
It hadn't,
maybe
it hadn't
not.
released yet. But there was like,
I know
like,
that. I know
there was like
the,
little
the new
30-second
wasp
clips.
is now corn dog.
dog.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Corn
that's
dog?
That's
Yeah,
the
have you
new
seen that
play
clip?
that was like the
Darius
basically
Tony wide open fake.
Oh, got it.
Just
You guys-
another example of him just being like,
Hey.
oh yeah, corn dog.
One of the funniest things I saw. Did you guys watch Mahomes on Kimmel? I watched that on YouTube last
saw some
night,
clips
and
of
he
it.
talked about what the name of it were like. The snow globe play that they did with Andrew Wiley. They asked about that play on Kimmel, and he was just like, "Dude," he's like, "We practiced that so many times," and he's like, "Then we call it." And I walk up, and then literally a DB points right at Andrew Wiley, and he's like, "I got him." And Mahomes was like, "Oh no!" He's like, a DB versus one of my offensive linemen. I don't think this is going to go very well. Yeah. And so like they just immediately called him on it and was like, "That's who I'm covering." And it was like, oh. And so anyways, what was the name of that play? They're like, well, Andrew Wiley collects a lot of Pokemon, so we called it Pikachu Gotta Catch 'Em All. That was the name of that play. Awesome. The formation was Pikachu, and then the play was Gotta Catch 'Em All.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's great.
So let's we have some questions here that are just general company related questions. We're going to go down the line and ask you guys. Does that sound good?
There's some good ones in here.
First and foremost, starting with Fred, who is your favorite owner and why is it me?
That's a good follow.
I will declare a favorite owner when we get to compete in an actual sport with one another.
I've already told you that there is really not much.
For the listeners, Kyle has an endless shit talking brigade against Freddy that he's
tired.
He's just a better athlete than Fred in every way.
Fred's
shape,
got
or
me in
form.
basketball. I've given him I've conceded basketball, but there really anything else besides that. What just not
Dylan, who's your favorite owner, man?
Just dodge.
Just say Kyle.
You know,
Sick question,
so
here, guys.
that's a tough one because I've got, this morning Jeff was at my birthday ruck.
That's true.
Kyle had to stay home with the kids. So
Jeff doesn't have 3 children to get dressed.
You are usually parenting at 4.
I will say my first time ever coming into the store.
Jeff, one day you're going to learn that you actually do parent at 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll learn it.
Walk faster.
You'll learn it, bub.
My first day ever coming into the store, it would have been Kyle.
Yeah.
Because me and Jeff were talking, and he was trying to tell me that there was things better than chicken and rice to eat after work. And I was like, "What are you talking
You're
about?"
like,
man?
hey, dude, chicken and rice.
And then Kyle came out and he said, "Hey, dude, you look strong. How much can you bench press?" And I'd hit a bench press PR that day. So I was like, "Actually, thank you for asking."
Music to my ears, actually.
Yes. He's like, I like that guy. That guy's cool.
So no answer.
I'll just take that as me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like pick between, like, do you love your mom or dad the most? And I don't know which one of you guys is mom or dad.
You know which one's mom and which one's dad.
You know which one's dad.
I don't know, man. I think you guys just have to fight to the death.
Yeah.
And whoever comes out on top. What I will say is this: you guys definitely need each other. Like, you guys are polar opposites.
That's true.
Like, this company can't stay afloat just with one of you guys.
If one goes down, we're screwed.
Yeah, we need to fight.
It's a yin and yang.
That is a good point. We might not have product in the store if it wasn't for Kyle. So
Yeah, that's true. What is your favorite float trip memory? We do a manager's float trip every single year.
that you can talk about publicly.
We didn't even. Kyle and I have honestly aged out of the float trip. We didn't even go on it this year because it's a young man's game. The float trip is a young man's game. It's an all day.
Can't believe you guys
event.
did that. That was definitely lost respect for both you guys after that.
I can't hang anymore, man. I got
Hey
3
man,
children.
I
that
can't
need
wait
me.
to call you out. Remember this? We have this on recording where I'm like, all right, man, you're 35 now.
Okay.
Go on a float trip with a bunch of 22-year-olds.
Kyle, you should have brought your kids, man. That'd have been fun with the baby.
I don't know if the kids are ready for the copter.
No.
They'd be afraid of the Mardi Gras beads being
Was
thrown.
Kim pregnant at the time?
I don't remember. Probably so.
Yeah.
The float trips.
Oh, yeah,
more
she
of
was
attrition
pregnant.
If it was in the
every year,
last
you
4
know.
years, it's just a yes.
There's.
Sorry,
Hey, we saw no excuses.
It's actually the last 5 years, but
We saw plenty of pregnant women on that float trip.
well, hey, women you just didn't know. You're like,
Right.
it could. I don't know.
Possible.
Yeah, possible.
Oh, gosh.
Could just. She looks swole.
But here, Nick's cousin floating by. And
This is epic. Oh my gosh, this is incredible.
it's just like, man,
One of our
I wish I
managers,
could just
Nick,
like play a clip of this. I wish you guys could like go into my brain and see this.
Oh,
But Nick's cousin
Explain
floating
who
on
Nick
by
is.
is like,
It's a sunny, it's a
so
sunny
Nick,
day. Give them the setting. It's a sunny day.
all right, sunny day, August, super hot, and we're just floating along. And
Might as well be a creek. It's not very fast.
Yep, it's just floating along. And Nick's just getting roasted the whole time. Nick's our manager of our Olathe location, and he's just an easy guy to give shit to. We love him. That's why he's so good at taking it, which is why it's so fun to give him shit.
He dishes it too.
He dishes it too.
And everybody loves Nick, but he does love Spider-Man, and we got to give him shit for it.
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah,
He is a big
absolutely.
Marvel comic.
But I love that he leans into it, like he loves it. But anyway, so I guess his cousin was like floating up on a paddleboard
By himself.
and
Just a solo
Nick-
dude coming up to the boat.
He's
yeah,
like- he's
and
like 13.
he's like 13 wearing a do-rag, and he's floating on by, and Nick sees him and he's like, oh no. It's like he just saw his it's like he saw his bully. And he's like, oh no, here we go. And the kid's like, Nick? And he's like, what? And he's like, you're gay, Nick. And we just look at Nick and like, you're just gonna let him say that?
You're like, who is this 13-year-old
Yeah.
kid, dude?
Yeah, man. It's
Meanwhile,
just like,
Nick is engaged to his fiance. Can't be like letting him talk blasphemy like that.
right. But I don't know.
And then so for the rest of the trip, you guys are hanging it on him that,
It's
he's
just
going to
funny
get beat
that,
up by a
dude,
13-year-old.
A 13-year-old comes up to you and talks shit, and then you just let it happen.
It was just the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen. It was awesome.
The worst part about that was the kid, I don't know how, but he knew Nick wasn't going to do anything because he looked back and he said, he's like, Nick, you're gay. And then he just paddled away, and he knew Nick wasn't going to respond.
Oh
Unbelievable.
my God.
I love that he was wearing a do-rag.
What's
Also
yeah,
good.
what about you guys?
I personally, this is price. I would say second favorite. The last 2 years, we've rented at least a 37-foot RV and taken it to the river.
The Blue Jay.
The Jayco Seneca the first year, and then shout out the Carsteaders for letting this bunch of banshees rent their RV and taking it this year. But it for sure was after the float. Everybody kind of got their second wind. You get a nap. You go out playing some Beersby, playing catch this, and one of our guys, man.
Oh,
Connor
no.
Lynch. He dots up like an Aaron Rodgers deep ball that's just marked for this other campsite, and this guy has got like one of those cheap aluminum foil tray of baked beans, and I'm telling you,
Oh no, a catering tray?
like a kit, like a cheap, like if you, it's falling apart if it faces some adversity, and this ball was labeled, and Connor slung this thing perfect spiral. He's trying to throw it, I think, to Austin Borders, and he overshoots him by like 35 yards. Like, there's no way. And Connor just let this thing fly. And keep in mind, like, I'm running this float trip. I'm like, well, if
you are
this
the
goes
dad.
south, I'm in charge here.
Yeah.
And this ball hits this plate of beans, and it couldn't have exploded larger had he drop kicked it. Like, and this guy showing his family.
A thing of baked beans?
It was baked beans.
It's like out of a movie.
Dude, and it blew up, and it was just like the silence that went across the campsite.
Like what teenage kids did this? Nope.
And you look over, and it's
26-year-old dude.
26-year-old Connor, and it was just kind of like I watched it unfold, and man, so good on that guy in that campsite. He didn't just start freaking out, but man, Connor threw this perfect spiral 40 yards downfield.
His 5-year-old son looking up at Connor like, what am I
Dude,
gonna eat,
what
Dad?
am I gonna eat? And this tray of beans, man, it blew up, and I just was like, what's going on here? And then the guy was so cool about it, and I was like, man, if that was my tray of beans, it's going down on the Niagara.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm drowning.
Every year I'm a dad, the less and less cool that scenario sounds to me.
'Cause
I'm
you're
like,
holding the beans,
I
dude.
am the guy holding the beans.
It was just
Slaved
like-
over that pot.
I felt terrible when that happened because Connor was playing catch with Austin Borders at the time, and Austin wouldn't go far enough. Like, Connor kept trying to get him to go further and further, and I was like, well, dude, just chuck it over his head. I was like, I bet you can't get it to the campsite. And Connor, you saw like his years of college football come back into his eyes.
Uncle Rico.
He's like,
turns
dude,
around.
I'm QB1.
He's like, I will throw it to the campsite.
Bro, he just threw it just a perfect spiral.
All right. So
I would just say, hey, instead of saying, favorite memory of this specific thing, what, you guys have all worked here for over 5 years. What's been your favorite memory being in the company at all? What's your favorite memory? It doesn't have to be anything specific. It's just, in general.
It's watching people fulfill more potential out of themselves that I think they may have known they had at one point, right? You guys both got hired as 19-year-old dudes, and we just talked about how you started with the company, and it wasn't this big vision. You're both looking forward to discounted subs and, going to the gym. And I was pretty dedicated from day one. I'm like, man, there is just more to get out of a lot of people. And seeing you guys step into, and not just you two, but a lot of our staff step into that role and start to fulfill some potential is like, we go back to gratitude, man. People that still work here or have left or gone to do other things, when you open their mind to like, hey, I'm capable of doing either a better job or being a better husband or being a better employee at whatever job that I'm doing, I'm just capable of doing more and improving. When you kind of open that door for people or help them open that door, because you have to open it for yourself, that is my favorite thing. And I feel like we've done that to a very small extent so far, and that I love it. So it makes me really happy.
Good luck following up that, guys.
Yeah. What do you got, Blake?
Blake's like,
So this one time,
we're at the river.
back to the Nick thing. No, that may have been the best moment, honestly. I really can't put it on one thing necessarily, but I think this is probably the coolest thing is the fact that the most fun I've ever had at work is right now. I'm 5.5 years into this thing. The most enjoyment, fulfillment, fun I'm having is right now. And you won't go anywhere else and that be the case. Unless you just got some promotion, now you do nothing and get paid more. But that's not...
one thing that happened to you in this last year that I'm really proud of you for, and, people who are listening to this can probably get a lot out of this, is that in Blake's store that he works at, we had the AC go out in the middle of the summer, and it was out for quite a while. And
COVID issues there. Can't get an AC easily.
Couldn't get an AC unit to replace it. And so it was like, 85 degrees in his store every single day.
All the bars are in the fridge.
Yeah.
They're melting.
And here's the thing, guys, is, Blake was able to kind of put that aside and still make his store function as best as he could through the adversity that he was dealt. And I think a lot of people would have kind of folded under that. A lot of people would have said,
Poor me.
the poor me's, given excuses as to why, things weren't, his store wasn't performing as well as it could have been or whatever. But Blake didn't do any of that. And Blake, I think that's a testament to the person that you've grown into and the man that you've become, because a lot of people in that same situation would just say, screw this. And
Not worth it. Yeah.
I'm really proud of you for fighting through that and dealing with that situation. And you earned a lot of respect across the company for going through that specific time, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I know that's not your favorite experience in S2, so we're talking like probably worst experiences in S2.
Well, I mean...
I got the right answer for you if you want to get it.
What's that?
It's whenever you met your girlfriend at our first company banquet.
Oh, yeah.
For the first time ever.
For sure.
We can cut that out, Luke, so that can be his authentic answer.
What is cool about that is what I think was actually a good thing for our relationship, looking back on it, is she didn't have any expectations and I had zero expectations either. It was just funny. It was just like, oh, Shay, look, your girlfriend's my date. Or your sister's my date. And it was just kind of a funny thing. And it wasn't even necessarily like I thought she was pretty, but it's not like, she thought I was super attractive, or like I thought, it wasn't even like that. I was just like, man, she's really cool. And there's a couple other events we saw each other and we just kept on talking. I'm like, man, you're really cool. And
did you get a kiss on that first day though?
No.
It was like basically friendship. You guys were like,
yeah, 100%. It was just like
hanging out.
Did you guys give a high five?
I don't even know if there was
Side
a
hug?
hug.
Side hug?
Probably a side hug. I don't really do side hugs, and she doesn't either. But I don't really remember. It it was so unimportant at the time that like I don't
I
even
get the no
remember it that
expectations
much.
part. Yeah, like you guys were really just like, let's just have fun. And
So
enjoy
it
yourselves.
was all house money. It was all great after that. So,
Yeah, but now you
like,
guys have
no
been dating over 5
expectations.
years. I mean, like literally.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Blake's
And-
start of his relationship is basically the same time he started working here. You guys were
Super
both
pumped to
patient
be
with
your
each other.
best man at the wedding.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
Yeah,
I'm excited for
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
So, dude, like, we were asking you guys these questions earlier, but just what moment has impacted you the most since working here, Dylan?
So for me, that kind of spans over about a 6-month period. In 2020, obviously, you guys know, I got promoted into management in June, at the end of June. I was in management for less than 3 weeks before I got demoted down to hourly employee. And essentially what had happened is
Just like two ranks for our listeners.
the entire time that I'd ever worked at Supplement Superstores, I was secretly hiding a prescription drug addiction. That doing
Adderall, correct?
Yeah, it was Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin, just every form of prescription amphetamine you can think of. And for the first 2.5 years I was working here, I was able to hide it really well. You know, I started taking pills, you know, when I was 16, and even before then, when I was 12, 13 years old, I was taking as many Benadryl as I could, sitting in my bedroom at night, you know, just anything I could do to like feel the sensation of something. And I remember I was 16, I started taking, I had a buddy, he gave me a Vyvanse for the first time. And I remember feeling like, I want to feel like this every single day. And pretty much from that point forward, besides a brief 3-month period, in 2017, when I quit for about 3 months, I was daily taking Adderall, and it, you know, or Vyvanse, whatever I could get my hands on. I was buying it all legally. And you know, the addiction got worse and worse and worse and worse. And when it really got bad was 2020. Pandemic happened. I wasn't working as much. I didn't have as much responsibility at the time because we only had like one person in the store. And what went from, you know, maybe 2, 3, 4 pills a day habit, turned into me staying up for 3-4 days at a time sometimes. You know, I was sleeping maybe 1-2 nights a week max, you know, and I would just take more pills. And it was kind of it was almost an anxiety fueled addiction. I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, it's 3 a.m. And I'm finally starting to feel tired, but I have to be up at 6 a.m. to make sure I can, or, you know, 7 a.m. to make sure I can make it to work. I would get so scared that I wasn't going to wake up, that I would take more pills, and it would keep me up, you know, and that eventually progressed into me just taking like an ungodly amount of, you know, pills, and finally got promoted. And when I got promoted, I think I completely stopped sleeping. Over that almost 3 weeks that I was managing, I probably slept 3 full nights, because it got to the point where it's like there's so many responsibilities that I now had that I just kept taking more and more and more pills because that was the only way I felt like I could actually handle those things. You know, and no one in my entire life ever knew any of this stuff about me. You know, like my parents had suspicions growing up. You know, they would catch me with like various things. You know, and I was always really, really good at lying about it. I had actually gone on like a 3-night bender back in January of that year. I was on fast track to getting promoted, like hopefully by February, and I ended up sleeping in. I think it was January 18th. You know, like 2 weeks before I was due to get promoted. And one of my biggest regrets to this day is Freddy sat me down in the back of Shawnee. And he knew something was going on, and he directly asked me to my face, like, hey dude, are you taking, you know, are you on drugs? He specifically said, are you taking Adderall? Are you on anything like that? And I looked him in the face and I just lied. Like I'd gotten extremely good at lying about it, to the point that I think I even convinced Freddy that no, I was just tired. I just happened to sleep in. I didn't set my alarm, something like that.
Yeah, we were all concerned for sure.
Yeah. And finally, you know, 6 months go by, same thing. I'm extremely unhealthy. I'm taking way too many pills. And, I got to the point where I'd been managing, and I think I stayed up for like 4 days straight, as the longest I'd ever been awake. And I passed out one day and just woke up at, I think it was like noon the next day, with Shago Patrick knocking on my door because no one had heard from me. I was supposed to open the store that day.
Man, we were shitting our pants.
Yeah, within 30 minutes.
We're like worried about you.
Yeah. Yeah, within 30 minutes, it was kind of funny. Shay actually helped me like try to clean up my apartment because it looked like a drug addict's apartment. You know, there's piles of trash and clothes, 15 Chipotle bowls that are half eaten just laying on the couch. You know, she helped me try to clean that up just so it didn't look so bad when you guys got there. And finally, you guys arrived, and I remember sitting on that couch, and Kyle drug tested me to make sure I was telling the truth about like what I was actually taking and whatnot. And I just remember sitting there.
Walgreens and had to get a little Walgreens drug
Yep.
test.
And I sat there and just begged you guys, like, whatever you do, just please don't fire me. Like, that was all I wanted is, in that moment, I had nothing. I had pretty much broken off any relationship I still had with my family at that point. I had broken up with the girlfriend that I had at the time. And it was just completely me by myself. And I was like, this is the only thing that I have. These are the only people that I have. I can't leave this. Anyways, after that, completely left the stores for 3 weeks while I was just detoxing. I pretty much spent, those 3 weeks sleeping in my apartment, before I started going into a rehabilitation program. Came back, worked at the Liberty store for a bit, and then Lee Summit opened, and you guys were like, hey, we're sending you to Lee Summit. And at that point, I had been through rehab to the point where they were like, I basically graduated. I didn't have to go 4 or 5 times a week anymore like I was. And it really ties back to gratitude. Having that time away from the stores and that time just like to myself, sitting in these classes, listening to people that have been addicted to drugs for 20, 25 years. Like I found out like the amount of stuff that I had been taking, I should have been dead. And I started waking up, and it was weird because I'd never understood gratitude up to that point. I started waking up with the sincere gratitude just to be alive. Like I was really happy to be breathing because there were so many people that, I heard all these stories about people dying, I'm taking a lot less drugs than I was taking. I'm like, how am I still alive? But my proudest moment was, I think Jeff had told me specifically when I started working, he was like, hey, don't even think about getting promoted. You're going to be an hourly employee for like at least the next 5-6 months. And I remember in my head being like, fuck that. I'm going to be managing by then. And, I just started going to a different gym every day. I started doing everything I possibly could to grow the Lee Summit store. Got promoted to management in February of 2021 at this point. And probably like my proudest moment, that I'd ever felt up to that point was you guys had told us that we were going to start awarding a new award every month, which was the Hardest Working Manager Award. And I wrote down the exact moment. I remember we were in Chicken Pickle when we found out that we were going to be giving out that. Actually, I think we were at Big Whiskey's at the time. Yeah. I wrote down that day, I will be the first hardest working manager. And like from that moment forward, like there was not a single thing that was stopping me. I was like, I will get this. And I ended up winning it. And winning that was, I felt like the first time that I'd ever just like genuinely worked as hard as I possibly could for something and actually been awarded it. You know what I mean? Like there was no like, I went into that meeting and I was like, it would be stupid to give this to anyone else. This month, like I was like, I've earned this. And I think that moment just really, I don't know. It was just it kind of it was for me. It was the first time I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna be on drugs again. Like I've beat this. You know what I mean? And obviously, you still have to be aware and whatnot. But I was kind of like, I will just never return to that because I started to like actually be able to function. I was actually sleeping. I was like, oh, this is crazy what you can do when you actually like wake up early and go to sleep early every single night. But that was definitely the most life-changing moment of my entire life or my entire career here. You know?
I mean, dude, it was a super difficult day, obviously, to see you like that. And, I want to go back and say, one, I'm super proud of you, dude. And proud doesn't really do it justice because a lot of people would not be able to handle what you handled and come out the other side like you have. And I want to say that, you've put yourself in this position completely on your own. I know you probably would give a lot of credit to a lot of other people, but you had to first be willing to want to make that change and surrender to the system like we've talked about earlier in this podcast. And you really did all those things. And, I'll never forget, the day that we found you that way and you were like, please don't fire me. Please don't fire me. We're like, dude, that's the least of our worries. Like we didn't care at all.
Care about your job. We thought you were dead, dude.
Yeah.
We were legitimately at your house, like knocking down your door. And, luckily Shay found you first and talked to us. And we it was a Saturday, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, Kyle had kids, like we were there at like 11 a.m., you know what I mean? Or noon on a Saturday. And, it was just like, dude, it's just what needed to happen. You know what I mean? Like, and so, I hope our other staff can understand that, like, you may not see us as much as maybe Dylan saw us at his younger age and we were working in the stores more, but it's like, man, we would do that for anybody.
Yeah.
We care about every single person that works for us. And I know it sounds like foo-foo and stuff, but it's like, dude, you guys are our family. We love you. And the last thing we were worried about was you having your job or vice versa.
Yeah.
And when you wanted to get back into work in the stores, it was like, hey, don't worry about getting promoted. That's what I was really the sentiment I was trying to get across to you in those 5 or 6 months. It's like, hey, all you should worry about is just today. And then tomorrow, worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And everything will just happen on its own from there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think you really did adopt that mentality. And dude, like I said, where you've gotten to this point, I think anybody that ever has met you since that moment, you know what I mean, would never guess that you had ever gone through that. And that's just a testament to how you've performed and how you've lived your life since then.
Yeah, I think, the thing to really reinforce too is that, we live by these core values that are at the top of this, room here. And you can't just live by those core values at work, right? They have to embody who you are fully, right? You have to fully embrace an ethical, lifestyle and a lifestyle, that's be a person of high character outside of this job as well as inside of this job to have full fulfillment, and also to be, to find yourself on the pathway to getting, where you want to be as far as, success goes.
Yeah.
And you learned it that day. You're like, I can't have this double life, to where, I'm focused on these things at work, but I'm also, doing, staying up all night, when I'm not at work. And I think you've done a great job of embodying those character traits, fully, in your personal life as well as here, since then.
Yeah. And I think the one like thing that I can, give to other people from that whole situation is the 3 weeks after that instance, like when I wasn't in rehab yet, I wasn't working, I was literally just laying in my apartment every single day. First of all, you're already like just extremely depressed. You're withdrawing off drugs. Like I would lay in bed until like my bladder filled to the point where like I had to get up or I was going to piss my pants. Like, it's weird when you don't have like any dopamine in your brain. Like you don't have motivation to do anything. You don't even have motivation to eat when you're starving. But having those 3 weeks, the toughest part about all of it, like even more so than the physical withdrawals, was recognizing that I actually don't live up to hardly any of these core values. You know what I mean? Like, and going through that, it was just tough because it was just me by myself in there. And like, I really had to face reality of like, if I actually want to get better, if I actually want to like start being like a man of character, someone who has morals, someone who like brings value to this world, I have to first recognize that, hey dude, for the past at least 4 or 5, 6 years of your life, you've been a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. You've lied, you've cheated, like everything bad that like everything that I would be like, oh, I would never do that today, was the person I was living, the person I was being every single day. And I think, for anyone to improve, for anyone to be able to start to actually, like I said, like be a man of character and like start to live by the core values, you have to first go through that period of like, hey, I'm not living up to this yet, and for everyone, it might not be, hey, I'm not living up to every single core value, but you need to honestly assess yourself and say, hey, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm not good at, because you can't improve until you've actually recognized that, until you have that awareness that that's not who I am. And I think for everyone at some point in your life, you're going to hit that, I would have loved to have reached that moment just by my own accord, not because I happen to be, withdrawing off drugs in my apartment by myself, but you're going to reach that point at some point in your life where you're like, man, I'm not the person that I want to be. But
you're in a spot, Dylan, too, where you're like, dude, that example is extreme. You know what I mean? Like that's an extreme example. And for the people listening, yours might be not like that, and I hope that it's not. You know what I mean? It took Dylan to get to rock bottom for him to recognize those things, and everybody's rock bottom looks different. But I try to explain this to all of the people that work for us, and Kyle and I have had the gift of, and it's a true gift, man, to be able to manage mostly 18 to 24-year-old dudes when they get hired on here. And so we've really become experts on how to help mentor and guide young men into hopefully becoming, a man of character. And the thing that I would want to, I want the advice of people to heed the most is just that it's really just a journey of self-awareness. And 18 to 24 is a time where you find yourself. And some people don't know they're doing it when they're doing it. You know what I mean? And so the more self-aware you become, the more growth you're seeing on a personal level, and the more ability you will have to help others, because you're creating that space in your mind to help others by knowing who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We talked about this in the beginning where Freddy's, saying like, hey, a lot of people are standing at the center of their own universe, and that's every 18-year-old when you meet them, mm-hmm. right? And so that journey of self-awareness is just becoming more and more accepting of who you are and knowing that. And then once you've done that, you don't have to take all this time and energy, mulling things over in your brain all the time. You have the space and capacity to create depth in all of your relationships that you meet. Everybody that you meet can now become your best friend because you have the space and the ability to be able to take that person in all the way and get depth from that relationship. Does everybody see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe not articulating that best, but that's really what I think that most people, it's hard to put it into words, but that's what you got to find when you're a young dude. It's just, who do you really want to be, and then are you actually practicing those values?
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of goes to the whole like you have to put on your own oxygen mask first. Like until you start to, really do that stuff for yourself, you're not going to be able to do that for others. There's no possible way that you can provide that for other people if you're not actually like
people
living.
see through it, dude.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, you're telling me to do that? That's cool, man."
And even
I know,
if they don't
I
at
know
first,
about you.
it's coming. Yeah.
Well, cool, dudes. It's been a great podcast. It's been awesome having you guys on. We obviously are very proud of all of you guys. You guys are by far, the top of the echelon as far as, here in Kansas City, and has really helped to grow Kansas City to what it is so far. And I just want to say I'm proud of you guys. I love you guys. And, I'm glad that you guys believed in us a long time ago, even though, Blake, you were just like, I'm just here for the free subs. You eventually believed in us, and it means the world to me and Jeff. And, like I said, I'm excited to see where the future goes with all of us.
Yeah, man. I have nothing really to add to that. I echo all those sentiments. Sincerely love all you guys and sincerely appreciate you guys believe in us in a time where it was very difficult for people to see what was coming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so grateful to be along for this path. I'm so grateful for that. I don't really know what I would be doing outside of that. My life would look completely different, but I'm just so grateful for it, and everything happens for a reason. So
it's taken me a lot of years to figure out that everything happens for a reason, man.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you of a handful of different times where it's like I got suspended in high school that kept me from going to Mizzou. I go to Mizzou, there's no Supplement Superstores there. I don't work there. I mean, number of reasons, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
just
the
crazy.
butterfly effect on all of this is just insane.
Right.
It's really cool to be sitting here at
The
this
amount of things that
table
had to happen
and our
for all of us to be
headquarters.
sitting here right now. Crazy.
Yeah, it's really is crazy. Like every Monday walking in here, I'm just like, wow. Like,
We
look
told
what
you
we
this was
did.
going to happen.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
and I
Yeah.
I believed it.
Yeah.
But there's a point of belief to where like once you see it, it's like surreal. It's like whoa. Here it is.
Definition of surreal.
Yeah. It's insane. And that's something that I'm really trying to not lose touch of. At the same time with still staying hungry. Something that I try not to lose touch of is like, this is really cool. It makes you believe even more.
And we got a lot of stuff. I mean, to wait till you see our headquarters.
It's just getting started.
The Supplement
Oh, yeah.
Superstores
Just
headquarters in St.
getting
Louis.
going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think that's the toughest part about it is, like Blake said, when you see a room like this, it's easy to start believing. You're like, oh, this is a big thing. But I think the skill that probably everyone is still working on is having that belief before you actually see those things. Like that's 100% why Freddy's a district manager and I'm not, is because Freddy came in and on day one, he walked in on a button-up shirt. He's like, I believe in this fully. Like he had burned the boats before he came in for his first shift. You know what I mean? So
He's like, I'm going to be your first district manager.
right, yeah. I think like having that ability to like believe before you actually see things start to materialize is what'll take you further than anyone.
Visualization.
Amen.
I think too, I know we're trying to end this thing, but one more point
No, you're good, man.
is, something that I wish that, and I really try to paint the picture for our new guys that I have, is something that I think we're lucky as, like me, Dylan, Freddy, and the people that have been here for, store number 1, store number 2, the early days, is what really helps belief is seeing where you were at before. We have a brand new employee that heard about S2 6 months ago. This has been shopping with us. They walk in here and they can't possibly appreciate it the way that we appreciate this. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm in company. Like, what cool table.
Yeah.
Like there's no way for them to possibly appreciate that unless you let them know what it was like before. I think that's
you guys are the way that they appreciate it. You have to, explain.
that's an obligation.
Yep. You guys got
to paint that picture of explaining of where we came from and how hard it took you.
And then
Looking
also
to
the
get
standards, your standards that you hold are basically, they show people like, oh, they worked hard for this.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey guys, again, we really appreciate you taking the time to make this happen. This was our 51st episode. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming on this podcast, but it was fun to take some time to reflect, and can't wait for the next 5 years with you boys. Appreciate
Appreciate
you.
it.
Later, dudes.